All right, so let's talk about the racing line. So the racing line is the whole purpose of the racing line is to obviously go around the track as fast as possible, right? Um, and the main idea, if you break it down, like if you break it down a track into the different corners, there's kind of like the optimal lines through each corner. Um, and when you kind of really dig down into the reasons of why a line is the way it is, mainly it's because the primary reason is because the exit speed is wherever the racing line is like configured or goes to the corner, it's that way because you're maximizing exit speed. And so there's a lot of things that can influence the way an ideal line is around a corner. And we'll kind of go through those things like later through the program because they kind of matter towards like the fundamentals two side of things. It's like a little bit more advanced. But one of the biggest contributors to getting the best exit speed is having the highest minimum speed throughout the corner, right? And if you get the highest minimum speed, you're likely that your exit speed is going to be higher. And then if you're on a straight, the better exit speed you have coming out of that corner, the higher you're going to be like at your speed throughout the entire straight. So like let's say for example, out of the hairpin on Tsukuba, you exit like 5 miles per hour faster than you normally do, you're going to carry that 5 miles per hour faster throughout the entire straight. And so you're going to make tons of time up. So like exit speed is like absolutely critical, especially for right before long straights. And so this kind of like applies to like parts of the track that aren't as long as well. So again, like exit speed is one of the most critical things about the racing line, and that's why you take the racing line to maximize your exit speed. So one of the most basic and fundamental ways to increase your exit speed, it again is having the maximum minimum speed throughout the corner, like a highest minimum speed as possible. So you do this by simply just increasing the radius of your turn throughout the corner, right? So you start on the outside of the corner, you take the apex, and then you go back to the outside. It's pretty like standard. If anyone is not familiar with that, please let me know, because that's like kind of the what you see, like if you watch racing, Formula One or whatever, they always start from the outside of the corner, they take the apex, and then they go back outside. And like obviously, the larger the arc you have through a corner, the more speed you can carry through. And again, that's your minimum speed throughout the corner. You have to slow down the least if you have the largest arc, right? So I'm just going to go through on track and kind of go through the different corners and just talk about what I call, and a lot of people call the geometric line. And again, this is like talking about the idea of maximizing the minimum speed you take throughout the corner. So if everyone goes into the lobby and like spectates, go into the spectate mode, and then you'll be able to cycle through and then find me on the track.
Okay. I don't know how to do any of that. Do I need to get out of the pit box or not?
Yeah. You get out of the pit box, get into the lobby, and then there's an option to spectate. It's like the binoculars.
You have to
Okay.
be in the pits to do it.
I have to be in the pits to do it?
Yep. Yeah, so right next to the green check mark or the red X, there's the enter course, and then to the right of that is spectate, so the binoculars icon.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Wait, who's that? Who's that
Uh,
talking right now? Is that Little Watt?
I would think so. He's the only one on track at the moment.
All right. I think he doesn't. I think he thinks he needs to be in the pit. I don't think you can just exit out of the off the
oh,
track.
okay.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
can. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, here it is. I see binoculars. Okay. So you have to come out of the pit and then you hit exit and then go to binoculars. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. All
And
right.
I,
Okay. Is everyone spectating my car?
Tofu driver?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's Wonka. Wonka is my car. No,
Hit
just
select.
exit.
You can
You
just
can just exit. Just hit like the menu.
Oh, there you are, Wonka. Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's. I was in auto drive. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yep.
Wonka. Which view would you suggest we use?
Chase cam. So you can hit. I
Okay,
think it's
that's the one where we can
It
see
should be
your entire
square.
car.
square. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
From the
That's like you
rear.
can.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
All right. Is
thank
everyone
you.
spectating my car?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So the geometric line, or like the biggest arc through the turn, is just simply you start on the left side of the track, and then you turn towards the center, and the midpoint here is where the apex is, and then you keep going, you start accelerating, and you let the car kind of drift out to the left side, right? That's like very very basic bare bones racing line stuff, right? And the next one, for instance, let's do the next turn. Here again, like all the way on the outside, slow turn in, hits the apex, and then back out, accelerate, and you're back on the other side. This one right here, you just lift a little bit, and then outside, apex, outside again, and let's just do this last hairpin for brevity. So outside, apex at the center, and then accelerating. So that's what we call the geometric line, and it's actually not the fastest way around a corner, and it depends obviously on a bunch of different factors, but it's generally like pretty close to being the fastest way around a corner. So there's some other factors that come into play around speed, right? So when you're coming up to a corner, a geometric line is it's considered like theoretical, right? It's like theoretically the fastest line. But like when you're in a car, there's a lot of other factors that come into effect when you're taking the turn, right? Like one is you might have less grip while you're accelerating, or like the grip around the turn isn't as good, or like your tires are worn, for example. So sometimes like a line, and in most cases a late apex is faster than a geometric line, because what you're effectively doing is you're slowing the car a little bit ahead of time. You're kind of waiting to turn in, and then you take a late apex to get a better exit speed out of the corner to maximize the speed when you're exiting. And for this car, I think a late apex here at Tsukuba works faster, slightly faster than a geometric line. So for example here, same thing, like you take a little bit wider arc, and then you take a later apex so you can accelerate more throughout the exit of the turn and increase your exit speed. And this is the actual racing line for this specific car on this track. And I'll do one more here for the hairpin. So you brake, and then you turn a little bit. I'm exaggerating just a little bit. Oops, I'm exaggerating just a little bit. All right, let me redo that. I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so you approach the corner, keep your car on the left side, and then you kind of turn in a little bit later than you normally would, and then as you keep turning, you hit the apex on the back half of the turn to get a good exit all the way down the straight.
Right.
So let's spend like the next like 20 minutes trying to practice this late apex and seeing if that helps your times at all. But the other thing I would recommend too is there's not much need to brake and turn with this car. Like I know a lot of people, I know you guys are like interested in like trail braking and stuff, but you don't even need to do that to be fast in this car. You just brake and then let go of the brake entirely, turn, and then accelerate. Like you can get pretty fast times without trying to trail brake, and then it helps you manage the weight of the car better. It's more stable. So avoid trail braking for the purposes of this exercise. So yeah. Now,
if I could just add something to the late apex, the reason that works is because you're straightening the line on the exit of the corner, so you don't have to steer as much as you're accelerating, and that's how you get the higher top speed on the exit.
Yep. That's precisely correct. Thank you, Toasty.
Yep.
All right, so then let's all just get back on track. Let's do a couple more practices and see if you can beat your best times. And we'll do that for another like 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and then we'll talk about braking and corner entry. But yeah,
I'll probably go really slow.
Yeah, try to do all of your braking in a straight line. Like you don't need to brake and turn at all with this car.
Ooh, a little hot. A little hot.
Toasty, you beat my fastest lap.
Oh, yeah.
So you said that late apexes isn't always the fastest with all cars, is that correct?
It depends. Like, it depends on the corner, it depends on the type of car. Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. Like, I'll just talk about that for a little while you guys practice. So one example is like cars with high downforce. So cars with high downforce, they can turn better the faster they go. And sometimes like if there's like a wide radius turn for Formula One cars and high downforce cars, like they don't need to take a late apex because they can go so fast to the corner that the geometric line is like faster for them basically.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally if you compare the racing lines between a car like this and a car that has high downforce, the downforce car will drive more of a U shape, and then the slower car that relies more on mechanical grip will take more of a V shape.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
The difference between taking the late apex and the geometric.
Yeah. I'd say the only... Yeah, I can... Or, Toasty, go ahead, you can repeat it if you want.
Yeah, sure. So the U shape is our what we're calling the geometric line, the outside, inside to outside. Just very, very simple U shape where the middle of the U is at the apex, and then the late apex is more of a V
shape.
So you're staying on the brakes a little bit deeper into the corner in a straight line, and then taking the apex a little bit later, and then straightening out the exit so that creates more of a V.
Yeah, and the reason for that is, again, because like the cars with no downforce or just rely on mechanical grip, they can turn faster at slower speeds. So like you want to brake and slow the car down, rotate it, and basically just straight line it out of the corner, which makes the racing line more into a V shape. But with high downforce cars, the faster they go, the more downforce and more grip they have around some of these corners. So like they can carry higher minimum speeds through corners, and they end up looking more like the U shape or more like the geometric line around the turn. The only exception to like not high downforce cars that end up needing to take more of a geometric line are cars that have very little power, like very, very little power, and rely on keeping momentum to be fast. So like really slow go-karts, for example, follow more of a geometric line because you just simply need to keep the revs up on the cart as much as possible, or like yeah, anything with an insanely small amount of horsepower that has like no power out of a curve, for example.
Right.
Is
Because then
something
you're
that you need
limited by the power and not the grip.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and this car is like has just enough power so that a late apex is slightly faster than something closer to the geometric line. But yeah, in the fundamentals 2 practice, we'll talk a lot more about like yeah, the things that affect the racing line through a corner that aren't as obvious, like topography, like the elevation changes in the corner, the downforce of the car,
Camber.
yeah, camber, yep. Yeah, we'll talk about that stuff in the second fundamentals practice. And that part's always really interesting because like that, when I was a beginner, like I didn't really understand how like elevation changes affected how much grip you had through a corner and how you can exploit that to simply go faster.
Yeah, some people on the entry of turn 1 here, they take an earlier turn-in point because of that elevation change. So they turn in early and then break in as straight a line as possible to avoid having the ABS kick in over the crest there.
Yep.
When I did the circuit experience today, that's exactly what the demonstration did.
Yep.
He started wide and just went straight in towards the corner.
Yeah. And that,
Of course,
that
I couldn't
depends
do
on
that.
the car too.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like the game doesn't explain any of this. You just like see like the ideal line sometimes, and you're like,
Oops,
why
see,
does
and
the
I just
game
cut it off
do
way
it
too
that
tight.
way? And yeah, it never really explains like the concepts behind understanding the line or understanding the grip and stuff. So
No, but it used to do that. I have a book somewhere from GT5 that was written by that Skip Barber Racing School, and they went through all of that stuff. Front-wheel drive, acute angle apexes and obtuse, and
yeah,
depending on. And now it's just kind of a dumbed-down version.
yeah, I
Of
feel
course,
like
I can't find that book.
yeah, I don't remember that book that well.
It was with the. You had to have the collector's edition.
Oh, okay, that's probably
It's
why.
digital now. It's still there. It's,
Oh, is it?
it's beyond the apex. If you go like
Yes,
all the way
yeah.
to the upper left hand, it's a section called Beyond the Apex.
Oh, okay, good. Because it was just a little book. But it had so much cool information in it. Tuning guide and the whole works.
Yeah, the tuning guide's pretty decent on Beyond the Apex.
Whoa. Okay, I'll have to look because it probably is exactly the same thing I'm talking about.
I'm watching. I'm spectating Sneak right now. It looks like your apex line, your entry line into the each corner is good, but it looks like you're on the throttle just a little bit going to the apex, and some people call that maintenance throttle just to try and keep up the minimum speed of the car. But that's actually pushing you wide past the apex there. So just focus on just coasting to the apex instead.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah,
No,
Sneak.
that was me.
Oh, Sneak.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't know
Yeah,
your voices
it's hard.
yet.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the voices. Yeah, is anyone having like any particularly difficult time with the car in terms of handling so far? Like, any questions?
No,
The
I'm
biggest
not entirely
problem-
sure if I'm doing the late apex right or not, but
Yeah, so you'll know
It's
if you're doing it
extremely
late.
light.
Yeah, if you know if you're doing it right, if like you're hitting the inside bumper of the turn, or the inside curbs of the turn, like ever so slightly later than the midpoint.
Yep.
Like you
And
don't want
then
to do it too late, because then if you do it way too late, then you're probably not you're probably over slowing the car to get to that super late apex. You just want it like a little bit late.
Yeah, and the two corners on this track where it's generally more beneficial are the turn one, I guess you could call it a hairpin, it's kind of a wide hairpin, and then the final hairpin going onto the straight.
Yep.
The rest of the corners, it won't be as beneficial because there isn't a long straight following or a long acceleration zone.
Woo.
Yeah, and that's
Somebody's
why
crawling up behind me. I'll let you by.
And that's why sometimes it depends on like where on track where like a late apex is faster, for instance. Like if there's a corner complex with like 3 turns in it, sometimes it's better to take the closest geometric line through there because you're keeping your minimum speed up as best as possible. But because if you were to take a late apex on all like 3 turns next to each other, it would just slow your car down way too much. So like again, like it depends on the corner, where the corner is in relative to the straights is what determines the ideal line through that corner. And we'll kind of go through this whenever we go to the Maggiore center track with the turn 1 cornering complex. All right, so we'll let you guys do a couple more laps, and maybe in like 5 minutes we'll talk about braking and corner entry.
So I don't know if I'm getting ahead, and feel free to be like, we're going to get to that, but on Tsukuba, the hardest part has always been I seem to be able to do the big gradual curve in either incredibly slowly or my ass is coming around.
In this car?
Like I can never, yeah, I can
Yeah.
never figure out how to get that, like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
The
so
last corner?
Stay in the throttle just a little bit, and that'll help you from getting that oversteer.
Yeah, are you-
anytime you're have a big change in input that will unsettle the car, right? It'll make the car dive forward if you're lifting off the throttle abruptly, or kind of lean back if you're getting onto the throttle abruptly. So with that corner, it's all about being smooth, and if you need to brake for it, just like gradually letting off the brakes and then gradually a little bit onto the throttle, and smooth with your steering as well, as to not cause any abrupt left to right motions. And that's what really causes the car to slide there.
yeah, we'll talk about a little bit about that too in the next section with like the braking and the corner entry. I think that's pretty relevant. So we'll get there.
Sweet.
But yeah, Toasty is pretty, just pretty much nailed it on the head. Is like you want to smooth out your inputs. Like if you're braking hard and then you turn hard at the same time, or you brake and then you turn too fast, like it'll unsettle the balance of the car, and then the rear will.
Oh
slip
my
out,
God, that
or-
was world of difference. Just smoothing out, letting it out, and not dumping it off, and
Nice. Yeah, I remember one time watching a clip from, I think it was the V8 Supercar Championship back before the last the most recent big regulation change where they were a bit more narrow. They had a bit, I mean they still have narrow tires, but they had very narrow tires and a lot of power, no assists or anything like that. And it was at a street circuit. And this guy, he looked like he was just flowing around the track. He was very smooth, but it looked slow because the car wasn't diving and dipping and diving all over the place. But he was the fastest. So I was like, wait a second. Like,
Yeah.
he looks like he's going so slow around here, but it's because he's smooth that he was able to get the time out of it instead of being aggressive with inputs.
Yep. It's the same with karting. Like, if you're smooth, you're gonna be fast.
Oh, too much, too much. Uh-oh.
Okay.
See, Sneak, you're not the only one that goes off track.
Well, I can tell everyone here what the last one I went through. The first thing I did with LRC, like hardly anyone ended up showing up. So I want to say it was I think it was me and Toast, because no one else had showed up and it was going to be an ACC thing. So he was trying to help me out. So we went into here. I don't remember what car, but he was just kind of spectating me. And when I started, I could not make a lap. Like, I could not get one lap around here without finding a wall, because it's not a track I'd done a bunch.
No, that was
So-
with me. Yeah. With Wonka, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember we like jumped into ACC and we're like, let's just go to GT7.
Yeah.
It was actually like that for me yesterday when I jumped on here with this car. I get this snap over steering corner number 1 and just spin out, and now I'm taking everything too fast.
Yeah, so we'll get into that in just a bit. So now I'll let everyone, if you finish up your lap, and then once you're done, jump back out into the lobby, and then go back into the spectator mode again, and then we'll talk about corner entry.
I can tell you one thing, sure is a lot smoother than when I first got in this car.
That's good.
I was feathering it around the whole time. I'm like, oh, I'm getting loose in the back.
Just out of curiosity, you guys use the cockpit view or do you use the hood view?
I used the bumper cam.
Okay.
Same.
I use cockpit.
Bumper cam.
I'll tend to use the bumper cam if I'm racing on my screen, but I just use VR most of the time when I can. VR is the
VR
best.
game.
Yeah.
Oops.
How is VR in this game? Is it super choppy or is it pretty smooth?
Beautiful.
It's incredible.
VR's the
like
best.
it changes the game entirely. Like it's absolutely insane.
Do I
I
need
highly
the pro
recommend-
for that?
No, you don't even need the Pro. You just need a PS5. Although I
The
hear it
only
is better
thing
on
is-
the Pro.
The only thing
I've
that's
heard
bad
it's
about
better,
VR
but it's not. I'm sorry.
I just think there's just some minor, graphic changes and like
Yeah.
just better FPS. That's pretty much it.
Well, I just got a PS5, so I'm not going to get an upgraded one.
It's
what
not
I
really a
heard-
big
VR?
difference, I believe.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth
I've heard
it.
if you have it, it's slightly better, but it's not at all worth $400 extra
Yeah.
for.
Kind
Oh,
of
it's
like
750 Canadian here.
kind of like the PS4 Pro versus the PS4.
Yeah.
There
It's
wasn't
like
a
if you haven't
huge
had-
difference.
Yeah. It's like if you haven't bought a PS5 yet and you have the extra money, like get the Pro,
Right.
but it's not worth it.
Do you feel more consistent on a VR or do you feel more consistent with a screen?
About the same.
About the same.
Yeah, if you, and I think we're going to talk about this right now. If you know how to use your references, then it's pretty easy to be consistent on both. So let's just get into talking about corner entry. So corner entry determines everything about the corner, of how fast you go, your line, everything. Like it all starts with corner entry. And the more consistent you are with your corner entry, the more consistent you are going to be with the rest of the corner and the exit as well. So a good corner entry follows what follows a good corner entry is a good mid corner and then a good exit as well. Usually if you nail the entry, it's much easier to have a good rest of your corner. So like making sure that you're consistent on the entry, in position, in braking, and then in turning, and all those three things. If you're consistent in all those three things, you're going to be very consistent throughout the corner, and the exit as well. So when you approach a corner, you always want to make sure your car is to the left side as much as possible, right? So if I
For a right-hander.
For the right-hander, yeah. No, like every turn you want to be on the left side of the track. No, yeah, it's like if you're on the left hand, right, and the track is turning right, so turn 1 is a perfect example, right? If I take the turn starting from here, right, I'm going to be able to take the racing line much better because I'm well positioned for the corner entry, and then I'm going to get a better exit, right? If I'm off the line, and this may seem pretty obvious to a lot of you, like if I enter the corner here, right, it's going to be way harder for me to keep my minimum speed up. It's going to be harder for me to turn in. It's going to be hard for me to get a good late apex because I'm going to have to slow down even more and then like try to get a good apex from here. I have to slow the car way more than I would if I just was on the left side of the track, right? This next corner here, right? The angle at which your car is pointing also matters a lot when you enter a corner. So if I'm entering the corner here, the ideal spot to enter the corner is where your car's straight parallel to the right-hand side of the track, and you're going to turn left into the corner right here. So this might kind of seem obvious, but it's not as easy to do when like the part of the track before this turns left, right? So what I see a lot of people do, especially around turn 2 at Tsukuba, is you'll go here and like you're gonna approach this turn, and then like what you'll do is I see a lot of people just take the turn like this, and that's like just not ideal because you're entering the corner from a position that's pretty much in the center of the track, right? So you're basically trying to take the turn from here as opposed to all the way from here, right? You get a better exit speed, you get better turn, you get better arc. So what you want to make sure you do is when you approach corners, you position your car to be in the best position for the corner entry. So for this example, right, when you approach this turn 2, you want to kind of take this right-hander here a little bit on the outside and then line your car up like here to get the turn in around turn 2. And so you have to make sure that you're paying attention to these small details when you enter the corner, because again, like if you just take it incorrectly, it's going to mess up with your consistency, right? If you always take it the same way, your car is pointing the same way, then your corner is going to be pretty consistent. The other aspect of corner entry is just simply braking. And whenever you're braking, I hope you guys aren't using like the braking assist, like the braking zone assist. What you want to do is you want to use references around the track to determine where you should start braking. And these references should be stuff that doesn't move. So it could be like the 50-meter board. If you're looking at my car in Chase Cam, there's that green 50-meter board to the left. That's like a very good visual indicator for me of when to start braking for the next turn. What people will do oftentimes is if you go into like cockpit view or even bumper cam, for instance, like you can see different parts of the track relative to your screen, for example. So if you're looking at my car with bumper cam, like you can see the 50-meter board all the way to the left of the screen, and like that could be an indicator of when I should start braking, for example. If like as soon as I pass that 50-meter board and it goes off screen, that's when I know I should start braking. And if you use that references consistently every time, you know you're going to hit your braking to be perfect, to enter the corner at the right speed. So again, for corner consistency, use visual braking references. Get your car all the way onto the side of the track before entry, and then those two things alone would be really good things that would help your consistency in improving your corner entry, the mid corner, and the exit as well. Yeah, so let's talk about more braking references real quick. So for turn 1, for example, there's a lot of like other visual indicators that you could potentially use for when you should start braking. Like one example could be like this runoff road here on the left side. Like when it ends, for example, when your car passes the back half of that little like piece of road, that could be an indicator of when you should start braking as well. You could use the tire marks on the track, but tire marks aren't particularly reliable, especially in real life, because they're not going to be there the next day. But sometimes in GT7 they're like always there and they always appear like pretty similarly. So sometimes you could use tire marks in this game, but I wouldn't rely on that specifically. Use things that are like close to the track, and are basically don't move. Like don't use shadows, for example. Don't use, I don't know, clouds. So basically use stuff that's not going to move. So yeah, any questions around corner entry? Yeah, so to recap again, like use a braking reference to determine when you brake. Keep your car parallel to the side opposite of the turn, and then make sure your car is like parallel with it so that you can get the best turning in. So like you don't want to be, for instance, like pointing this way or like pointing this way, right? Like as you enter the corner, you want to be straight. So especially turn 2, like when you guys get to turn 2, really practice the corner entry around lining the car up on the right side of the track before the corner. So like when you get to this section here, you can kind of take this like squiggly a little bit wide here and then line up the car like this to get the best corner entry into turn 2. So let's practice that, and then practice like, you know, our braking references and see if we can improve our times even further. So we'll do this for like another maybe 20 minutes till the end of the hour. We'll take a break and then we'll start getting into the next section of practice.
The one thing about the braking references on the track, I noticed this in the Manufacturer's Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Light conditions and rain, it erases all of that stuff. You can't see any marks on the track. You know, because like the Nürburgring, you can be like, oh, there's all these chalk marks and I'll use them. No, not in the rain, you won't. So,
yeah. There's there's been plenty of times where I've done stuff like that, where I use even the foam boards on the side of the road that have the braking distance, like the 100-meter and the 50-meter. Like sometimes people can crash through those, right? And then you don't have those for the rest of the race. So even those sometimes could be tricky. Like you want to have references that are basically indestructible to reference when you brake.
Yeah, and the higher up those references are, the better, because if you're right behind a car, using a reference that's on the racing line will be invisible to you until the car passes that point. So if you're using a braking board that's up above a barrier or a sponsor banner that you pass under or something, that will be much more consistent for you than a mark on the track.
So how do you pick your first braking markers? Because I feel like when I watch a track walk marker, I have something going into it. I'm pretty good at hitting markers, but when I start a new track, especially like with a new car I haven't really driven, what do you start with?
Yeah,
Slow.
Just be. Oh, go ahead, Tess. You
Right.
can take this one.
Yeah, so to start, I would just start picking ones very early, like incredibly early, to the point where you know the car is gonna be able to stay on the track. And then as you're following this racing line, you're figuring it out, you're gonna be faster and faster through each corner, which will cause your braking references to um, become relevant almost because those early braking markers where you thought this is too early, you're now taking so much more speed through every corner that it becomes much closer to what you would see in a track walk. So, for example, if you're learning turn one on this track, for example, and you haven't been here before, pretty much just um, brake before a point you would see in any track walk video, pretty much. Probably before the access road on the left, really. And then you're going through there, and then for the turn two, what we're calling turn two hairpin, it's like, okay, I'm braking at the right after the squiggly bit, and then the next time you go through turn one, you might go through there a lot faster, but then you're prepared for that because you're building in some margin so that you're not flying off the track in the second corner, if that makes sense. You kind of build up to it.
Yeah.
It's much easier to start slow and build up to it than to try and set the fastest time you can from the start, and then you're constantly thinking like, how did I fly off that corner that time? How can I adjust?
Or you just try to squeeze it in there some way or another and it never worked out.
Right.
Yeah.
Bit of a roundabout answer to answer that question, but I hope that
Yeah.
made sense.
Another thing I'll add too is that I think one big misconception about going faster on a track is that people feel like they need to brake later to go faster around a corner. And that's partially true, but the way you gain time is way more dependent on how well your exit speed is. So you can brake earlier and just brake less over a little bit longer period of time, and you actually won't lose that much time. But your consistency will improve like greatly, right? And it's better to brake earlier and then brake less so that you can have like a little bit of an adjustment period than trying to brake as late as possible at maximum brake pressure, and there's very little room for error. You'll make a lot more mistakes. You'll be a lot less consistent. So you can always brake earlier. Just brake a little bit less. Like you don't need to brake at 100%. Just brake at like 80%, for example. And that can also help with consistency going into a corner.
I'm spectating Quapo now, or El Quapo. That line through turn 1 was really good, but same kind of thing with the little bit of throttle to the apex. Just focus on coasting to the apex, just lifting off the brake gradually as you get there, maybe like 5 or 10% brake before you get to the apex, and then gradually onto the throttle. Because the little bit of throttle that you're leaving in is causing the car to go wide.
Go wide?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, if you're having trouble with like the corners and the car stepping out a little bit during the corners, like sliding and skidding, try starting out by just going through the corners like slower, but try to smooth out your inputs as much as possible. So just like go through the corners slowly, but just as smooth as possible as you can. Like brake and then transition into the turning in slowly, making sure that you hit the late apex and then getting on the gas slowly as well. Like try to be as smooth as possible. Like even applying the brakes, you can apply the brakes like smoothly, just to like get you in that like mindset of smoothing out your inputs. Like smooth on brakes, smooth off the brakes, smooth on turn in, smooth on the throttle.
Yeah, so if you're consistently noticing that you're drifting out wide on the corner corner exit, then that usually means you're applying too much throttle too early. Even if the back of the car isn't starting to slide around under throttle, that can cause you to go wide.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
So something to kind of think about, something that will hopefully clear up like what we're trying to explain. So if you're looking at the HUD, you can see your throttle and brake trace. If you can't see the HUD, then I guess just to imagine the two pedals. On a corner entry, you want to start the at the start of the braking point, your reference, you're at full throttle, and then you slowly lift off the throttle, slowly apply the brake, right? And then as you're going towards your turn-in point in this car, you're slowly releasing the brake, turning in, you're fully off of the brake, going to the apex, and then very gradually onto the throttle. So you're not full throttle until almost all the way on the outside of the corner exit again.
String theory, right?
String theory.
Yeah, string theory. Yeah. A lot of people
Tie
refer
a string to
it
the steering wheel and to the pedals.
Yep.
Now, see,
I like
I'm glad you
to-
didn't say bean.
I like to.
String bean theory.
I like to just call it. I don't really call it anything, but I like to think of it as just grip utilization is just 100%. And
Yeah.
so if you're turning 100%, you're max turning, you're basically using that 100% of grip. And so there's no room for acceleration or brake, right? But if you're braking at 50%, you're allowed to turn about 50%, or the utilization of the grip 50%. So
Oh, almost in the
same-
108s.
Same with acceleration, right? If you're accelerating 90%, you're not going to be able to turn any more than 10% to stay on the track with the grip utilization. And then the grip utilization can change depending on conditions, right? It could be like if it's a corner that's banked, for instance, right? Maybe the grip utilization is more like 120% that you can actually use, so you can actually turn and accelerate more than you normally would because the turn is banked, right? Or if it's like the camber is off camber, the grip utilization is maybe 80%, so you might not be able to accelerate as well and turn as much as you want at the same time.
Yeah.
But we'll get into those things a little bit later. I think that's the fundamentals too.
Yeah. Or you could think about it as your 100% changes. That's the way I like to think about it, but depending on
Yeah.
how your brain does math.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah. For me, I like arithmetic. Like I don't know, arithmetic is just like, yeah. Or the other way to think about it too is like if you have 100%, right? Actually, that doesn't work. I was gonna say, if like the turn is off camber, like the off camber part maybe takes away 20%. That's kind of similar to like what I was talking about. You only have 80% available to you because the turn is off camber, and then if the turn is like banked, for instance, then you have like an extra 20% available to you because you have extra mechanical grip.
Oh, don't lose it.
All right, so let's finish up our laps. Let's take a 10-minute break. So let's reconvene 10 after the hour, and then we'll get started with the last section of this practice when we'll talk about corner complexes. So like the racing line through like multiple consecutive turns and how to think about the ideal line through those.
I got a 108, but it's invalidated.
Almost. All right,
So
so
it's because I
yeah,
drove past.
so again, like feel free to take a break, like jump out, do whatever you need to do, or feel free to keep practicing. But we'll continue 10 after the hour.
Is the majority up?
What was that?
Is the majority lobby up?
No, we'll switch the track once everyone's back, so that way
Okay.
people can continue to practice on scuba. Alright, I'm gonna stop the video